And then at COP15 at Copenhagen, countries came together again. And one of the biggest outcomes of that COP was an agreement by developed countries, the rich countries, to send money to poor countries to support them to adapt to climate change. It wasn't just adaptation, it was adaptation and mitigation. So it was to support their climate change actions. So they say that they would send 100 billion by 2020. So 100 billion every year by 2020. And so in 2009, they kind of said, give us 30 billion as you know, initially, and then build up that money, make sure that the next year is a bit more than 30 billion, and then the next year, and then by 2020, we want 100 billion annually. And that kind of, it was very optimistic. Everyone was excited that countries would get a bit more money to do their actions. But since then, developed countries have not met this goal. There's a lot of tracking of finance that shows that poor countries are getting way less than what was promised to them. And because of these, there's a very huge deficit in adaptation finance mostly. Countries have less finance to support their adaptation needs, but also whatever finance is coming in is going towards mitigation. And mitigation, while important, is also, poor countries want mitigation to be prioritized alongside adaptation and not just have mitigation alone. And so at COP26, we were expecting that in 2020, we'd have countries achieving the 100 billion annually goal, but they haven't done that. So at COP26, there'll be a discussion on what have we done so far, what have developed countries done so far, and how can we make sure that we have developed countries, meeting their obligation, meeting their commitments, but also surpassing it. But beyond that, there's the money being sent, there's the money being committed, that, developed countries are committing money. But another conversation about climate finance that I'm really excited about is what is this money doing? How are communities or countries, poor countries, what are they using this money for? And so it's not just about how much money is there, it's also about what is this money doing. And you'll see some of these discussions come up and talking about how can we get more money going towards adaptation, a 50-50 split between adaptation and mitigation. And how can we get this money doing what it's supposed to be doing? And that in this case, it means that we need money to be reaching those people who are most affected by climate change. And one thing I need to mention is that there after the Paris Agreement, there was a creation of a dedicated climate fund. It's called the Green Climate Fund. And even before that, there was the Adaptation Fund. There's been specialized climate funds that have been created to support developing countries to adapt and mitigate climate change. At COP26, there'll be discussions about what are these funds doing, how much money are they getting, but also what are they doing with that money, and how can we make sure that they are getting as much money as possible to the poor countries. I think in a very simplistic form, that's it. There's also issues of private sector finance. How can we get businesses, firms such as Microsoft or Google or Apple sending more money to committing towards mitigation, but also adaptation? How can we get small businesses in countries, in poor countries, also committing towards mitigation and also adaptation?